feel like business podcasts are just one big sales pitch? Welcome to the Marketing Thread. I'm your host, Brandon Salisbury. We created this show for one simple reason. We love talking about marketing. This isn't a corporate front or a rigid interview series. It's a candid peer-to-peer conversation with people who are obsessed with what they do. We dive into the topics our guests are genuinely passionate about, from the latest tech to old school strategy. Plus, we wrap up every episode by jumping into the chaos of the internet with our Ask Reddit segment, delivering the marketing questions that the community is buzzing about. If you want a seat at the table for a real conversation between marketers, you're in the right seat. Excited today to be joined by Zach Collins. Zach, thanks for joining the Marketing Thread, and you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself so the audience knows who we're talking to?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. My name's Zach. As you mentioned, I am the partner marketing manager over at First Western Trust, based out here in Denver. I work for a regional private bank, and really just trying to find a way to partner with our local communities and with some of my market presence.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah, Zach and I struck up conversation not too long ago and had some really good stuff to share. We had some unique perspectives on things like college, things like sales and marketing alignment. So Zach, excited to jump in and talk about some of that stuff with you here today.
So,
Kick us off. One of the things I love to get people's perspective on, and one thing that you've been pretty outspoken about is just challenging the status quo. You challenged the status quo quite a bit on LinkedIn. Love to hear from you. Like, in your opinion, like what's one marketing practice or status quo that is just like total garbage right now?
you know, talking to somebody, obviously it's chief marketing officer, and I guess this is kind of a hot take. I hate annual plans. I don't know how much in 2026 and in that post-COVID era it really matters anymore. I work in an industry that's already slow moving, but it feels like every single time that anybody starts to work into annual planning and looking at a whole year in advance, things change just way too often. And I feel that as marketers, our job is to be prepared and to react and to at the same time always be proactive in what we're doing. But every single time somebody starts down an annual plan and you look back at it at the end of the year, it has absolutely nothing to do with what actually happened. And so I find it completely garbage. I don't know, but I'd love to get your take too. I mean, you're somebody that you're working at an organization that probably moves a little bit quicker. How has annual plans kind of gotten into your vision?
I'm right there with you, man. I think the more detail you have in an annual plan, the less likely you are to follow it. One of my favorite quotes is the old Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And every year, like without a doubt, you have this amazing marketing plans. You're like, oh, this is it. We're just gonna like crush this year because I have this great plan down on paper, and it never goes according to plan. I think where there's parts of an annual marketing plan that can be effective. Having a clear definition of what your ideal customer profile looks like, the portion of your target market that you're really going after, having some high level frameworks for how you want to approach the year, and then as you get into each quarter after quarter, that's when you should be adding in really the specifics there. But yeah, man, when I look back at last year, by the time we got to December, the year looked nothing like it did back in January of that year. So I think having a good idea of kind of the direction you want to go, but then adding a little more fidelity as you get into the individual quarters is, I think, probably been my approach and probably the most effective that I've seen.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we are looking back at 2025, and just with the amount of disruption that we had in our market in the banking atmosphere when it comes to acquisitions and mergers that occurred, we are in a consolidating market. You look at the year ahead thinking X, Y, and Z are going to happen, and then every single headline hits, right? I mean, you get to see oil prices going up, everybody starts freaking out. You see a huge acquisition in our market, everybody starts freaking out. And everything that you already had structured and everything that you already had in your head of this is how we're going to approach the market and this is what we're going to do to solve whatever the problem is our customers are facing goes out the window. And every single time it's about how do you adjust in the moment and how can you react to what's actually happening around you.
Yeah, I mean, being able to plan the flexibility is the key, right? Like being agile and being ready to react to what's happening. You want to have a certain amount of structure to where you don't just get blown with the wind, but I think the successful companies are the ones that are poised to capitalize on the changing dynamics of the market.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Thanks for that, Zach. Great way to kick us off. I'd love to dive in. We had a great conversation about like kind of your path into where you are now, which was kind of a less than traditional path of how you got here. When we were talking, you talked about your path through college, D3 athlete, played soccer, and you spoke a little bit about some of the regret that you had in going to college. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, and you're deciding what to do and how you wanna approach life after high school, what would you tell yourself instead of signing that enrollment paper?
So I went to college because I was the first in my family to get a 4-year degree. And I was pushed in that direction because it was something that they saw back in the day of this is something that you need in order to be successful. I chose sports management because I mean, like, come on, like you go to college, you're like, I don't know what I want to be, I don't know what I want to do. And looking back at it, I think something I really put a bigger emphasis on was certifications and apprenticeships and internships and being able to get exposed into the industry a little bit more. When I was in college, I did as many of the internships as I could. And so I remember going out and I did an amazing opportunity with the NJCAA out in Ames, Iowa. And I got a chance to just get an understanding of what it would be like to be an athletics director. And it was something I was actively pursuing and I wanted to get into the space. But once you go through that and you get to kind of see what the day-to-day experience is and what the expectations are, it kind of allowed me to understand like this is not the right fit for me. I do not want to grind making $15 an hour for the next 25 years before the one opportunity there is to get into the position of leadership that is athletic director. And so by doing some of that, I learned a whole lot more than I ever did just sitting in a classroom and spending $50,000, $60,000 a year on a 4-year college degree. And now you come out of college and it's obviously just a whole bunch of debt that nobody really needs to take on. But that exposure really is what led me to get an understanding of which direction do I want to go in my career.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You know what? There's some degrees or some professions. Obviously, you want people to have gone to college, right? Like I'm not gonna go have surgery with some doctor that's never been to college. Like, please, and by all means. But when it comes to marketing, I know that the 4-year degree is an important part of that process. But I learned a lot more by doing the job than I did sitting in the classroom. And so I think your approach of like taking on the apprenticeships, taking on real world experience, especially early on in your journey, is really good advice. Getting in and doing the job and saying like, man, is this like I'm going to school for this? Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Is key. So I love that approach. I think the earlier you can get in and start getting the experience, not only does it help to solidify like this is what I want to do, but it also just gives you that real world experience to know what to do once you get out of school. So love that.
Again, like I have a really non-traditional path of the way I came into marketing. I went to school for sports management. COVID had happened. I'm a young guy. I'm 26, going on 27, and trying to figure out what was it I was gonna do. And so I remember picking up a Starbucks job at 4:30 in the morning. And I opened up every day, and I had a chance to meet with all the customers that were coming in during the COVID era. I had a little slip that said, for some reason, I was an essential worker. So I got a chance to get out there
All
while
those
everybody was sitting at home. There was
Starbucks.
something, yeah, they had to know I was the most essential person out there, right? And so I worked at Starbucks, and I think that really built up like an understanding for client experience and what it meant to people and understanding like what your product can do. And it was amazing. Wanted to make some more money and worked over at a title agency for a little bit. And as somebody that loves to be quick and loves to be on their feet and loves to do things, doing closing packages all day, every day is just not where it's at. And I remember sitting there and being like, man, I don't know what I want to do. And I was having a conversation with my now wife, and she said, hey, I think you'd be really great at marketing. And I didn't take any marketing courses in college. I mean, I took some PR classes, if you want to count that, and stuff like sports management obviously has a branding component to it. So I didn't know what to do. So I did what anybody would do at 19, 20 years old, and I Googled marketing agency near me. And the first marketing agency that popped up, the CEO at the time, her name's Amy Meester. She was one of my customers every single day at Starbucks. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, but I will work my ass off and I will learn and I will kill it. And just, if you could give me an opportunity, it would mean the world to me. And I said, I hope this isn't too weird. I also still remember your drink. And it was a grande, non-fat, sugar-free vanilla latte. Remember that still? And she had mentioned, she's like, hey, I would have hired you back then. I would absolutely hire you right now. And so 2 weeks later, I made my transition over to a marketing agency, and everything that I've learned from marketing has all just come through real world experience. It hasn't been through the classroom, and it hasn't been through accreditations or anything like that, because I didn't have that in place. It came through mentorship, and it came through failing too. I mean, what's beautiful, absolutely beautiful about marketing is it really is a blend of art and science. And in order to like be good at science, you have to fail. And I think that marketing agency really gave me a platform to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and kudos to her too, right? Like being willing to take a chance, like seeing something in you and realizing like, hey, like I don't know anything about this, but like, I'm gonna get in and put the work in and having that relationship with you to be willing to take a chance. Like that's oftentimes where you find your best people, right? Is the people who maybe they don't know everything they need to know, but they'll figure it out. So kudos there. As I mentioned, you played D3 soccer, which I think is awesome. In D3, you generally don't have a full ride scholarship, right? You're there really out of the love for the game. And so what I would love to hear from you is like, as you're going through the grind, the D3 soccer, going to practice, putting in the extra work, how does that grind for the sake of the craft translate in how you approach marketing today?
So I was thinking about this. Like there's so many ways you can go about how you compare like the athletics, and it could be the scheduling, right? And being on your feet all the time and being adaptive. Really what I think is the best about marketing, I am competitive as hell, and I owe that to competitive sports. I want to beat the competition, and I want to understand what our opponents are doing. And when I say opponent for banking, what are our competitors doing, right? What messaging are they leading with? I want to be better than them. I want our clients to think that we're better than them. And so I think what really came through that D3 side is just building up the mentality of I'm going to go out there, I'm going to work harder than the competition, and I'm going to beat them. And in beating them, it could mean whatever metric we want to put into place, right? I'm going to get more leads than them. I'm going to have a better reputation than them. I'm going to have a better brand than them. Whatever that might look like. I really do think that the competitive spirit of Division 3 sports or sports at any level, coupling that with the tenacity of the schedule, right? Up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning doing your workouts. I mean, you still have classes to go to. You still have homework assignments, all those pieces. I think it really translates into that marketing space in the sense of you are on your feet 24/7. You need to be adaptive, and you need to understand that what you're going to do is, as much as everybody thinks it's just pretty colors and fun messaging, it is hard work. And it takes a lot of research and understanding what your competition is doing. And it takes a lot of building out the game plan and saying, okay, well, if they're going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing this, and let's carve our space in the market. I know that you have a background too. I mean, in the sports side of things, and you talked about how your kid was playing sports. Like, how have you kind of seen that and applied that to Tilt?
Yeah, I similarly very competitive, right? Like, right down to like, I can't stand logging into LinkedIn and seeing that my competitors have more impressions over the last 30 days, right? Like, just like all the way down to that. What you said about like messaging and like the number of leads and stuff, that definitely hits home. Every aspect of what we do, I'm like, we got to be the best. I can't stand for a competitor to even be like slightly better. So, I think sports played a huge role in my life. Like growing up playing them, my kids are playing them now. Learning how to grind and how to push through. Like not everything is always smooth sailing, and you got to be able to build up that resilient mindset and be able to push through. And you also got to think. It really has helped shape my strategic thinking too, of like, hey, if they're gonna play this way, like I'm gonna do this over here. Here's how I'm gonna react to how they're approaching things, and here's how I'm gonna do it better. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of takeaways and things that growing up playing sports have helped shape for me personally. I'm not saying that's everyone's got to go through that, but for me personally, like that's how it's impacted me to just like approach my thinking. And like you said, like marketers, we may not always be thought of as like the most competitive people, right? But we are. We're constantly studying the competition. We're constantly looking at like, how to improve what we do, and we really take pride in our craft. So those that's for me how athletics has played a big role there. Um,
Competition, where it's at.
yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so in one of your posts on LinkedIn, you pointed out that companies seem to have like traded storytelling for just a generic checklist of claims, right? Like we are the number one at this, and we're the best in class in this. Most marketers they use those because they feel safe or maybe even a little lazy, not putting in the work that you talked about to like go out and really hone in on the craft of storytelling. When you're sitting in a room with somebody who's terrified of moving away from that safe borrowed language, how do you prove to them that their safety is actually their biggest risk?
I think it comes to trying to showcase how they need to differentiate themselves, right? I mean, I'll use the banking industry. Obviously, it's just what I'm around with. So I'm gonna stick on this example for a second. But it in my industry right now, we are a regional bank. We're a private bank. We target high net worth clientele. We work with entrepreneurs, business owners, and we target a space that every single bank wants to work with. And everybody in this industry right now uses the three keywords that we have said for the past couple of years that distinguish us apart from everybody else. And we're really starting to see that come to light. We are trusted, we are advisors, and we are local. Experts and advisors can rotate in and out, but don't tell compliance. They're going to get really pissed off if I claim to be expert at anything. But really, when it comes to sitting in the room and trying to showcase that, if I am to repeat myself and us as an organization are to repeat ourselves over and over again, that we are trusted local experts, and the bank down the road says, well, we're trusted local experts, and the bank from there says, we're trusted local experts. At the end of the day, we are saying the exact same story, and nothing is going to end up differentiating us apart other than the client experience that they have with us. And so when it comes to generating new prospects and new clients and being able to retain them for a long period of time, that brand story really starts to just end up being a little bit more like clouded and fatigued. And so for me, if I were to sit in a room, I'd have the conversation of, tell me how you were founded. Tell me why your clients stay with you, and tell me why they think that you are better than the competition, better than anybody else. Because your brand story ends up falling into that little space once you get to the root of where everything was. Over time, it tends to fall apart, and you end up trying to follow others because you're like, well, they said that and they said this, and I get it all the time. I mean, our sales teams reach out to me and they're like, did you see what this bank did? Did you see what that bank did? And when you start to tell that same story over and over again, you just fall into the bucket of just options, and nobody starts to remember who you are. And it impacts you down the line too. I mean, as marketers, we're trying to go across different mediums, right? So like when it comes to sponsorships, I tell everybody all the time, we don't have the brand strength as an organization right now and the storytelling right now to be able to put our logo next to a JP Morgan, right? If you are to see my beautiful white W I have sitting on my chest right now, and you had no understanding of who we are, it doesn't matter. And so the $10,000, $15,000 that I put its place there means absolutely nothing. And so long term, that brand story and the way that you tell yourself and present yourself in the long run ends up having a long term effect on costs. It ends up having a long term effect on the way your clients think of you. And it ends up having a long term effect on the way that your sales teams begin to have a conversation about what it means to work for the organization and why those clients should come in. And so, yeah, I think it's rooted in the brand story. And I think it's rooted in trying to find a way to sell yourself against everybody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's also the quickest way to get into a race to the bottom when it comes to pricing. When everything sounds the same, everything looks the same, everyone's like, well, if you're the same, then who's the cheapest? So it's the quickest way to have a race to the bottom. Um, one of the things you mentioned about like going to an event or whatever and like having your messaging all kind of sounding the same. Just a few months ago, I went to a conference where I was a vendor at a conference, and you go and as a marketer, like you're kind of curious about what's everybody else doing, like what do their booths look like, and like what's some things I might want to steal and do differently next time, and I walk around and like there's this sea of booths, and every booth says AI powered blah blah blah, whatever that service is. And everyone just kind of fell in line with this and fell in love with just like this AI powered this. very few of them actually talked about like what is the benefit that us incorporating AI into our product do for you, and how is our incorporation of AI different than every all the other 1,000 vendors that also claim to have AI in part of in their software. So yeah, it's very easy to fall into, well, everyone else is doing it, like keeping up with the Joneses, like everyone else is doing it. We gotta, if everyone else is doing it, then it's obviously got to be the right path. And early on in my career, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from a mentor of mine was, if you cannot do something because you're afraid to get fired. The moment that you start doing something because you're afraid to get fired is the moment that it's going to get you fired. Because if you're worried about zigging where everyone's zagging with messaging, or how you're telling your story, you become just like everyone else, and you don't stand out, and you don't hit the outcomes that you're looking to drive. And so it pays to be daring, and it pays to be different, and that's an important part of what we should be looking to do as marketers. Cool. So you talk about your experience in banking. You mentioned that in your industry that it's an industry that's built on trust, right? And so in that setting, a brand story isn't just marketing fluff. It's evidence, right? So on the show we talk a lot about sales and marketing alignment. I'm curious from you, like your perspective on how a marketing team can move away from some of those interchangeable headlines, and instead, look to provide the kind of story-driven evidence that actually helps the seller close the deal.
You mentioned a piece of advice that you got, so I'll mention a piece of advice I got. I remember before our newest head of marketing joined on, I was asking the question. I was like, man, I don't know how to tell this story. I don't know how to speak to this. And the best advice I got was just ask the question. And I think oftentimes people think about asking questions as fearing of getting called out for not knowing what you're doing, or a sense of I don't understand. But in this sense, it was ask the question in terms of go talk to the sales teams and go sit down and get an understanding of what are they seeing on a day-to-day basis. And so, for example, we're redoing our brand messaging right now, right? And one of the exercises that we just had a chance to do is I reached out to some of our top clientele, and I said, I just want to get an understanding of what led you to choose First Western Trust, and what stood out to you about us and how we were able to support you. And we were able to actually hear that story firsthand. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to go broadcast their stories on every advertisement that we're going to do, but it's about pulling the messaging points out of there that began to resonate, because you could start to see the patterns. And so, for example, with some of our clients, I remember we were sitting there and having a conversation, and I don't know what I thought I was going to hear. I mean, we're in banking, so like it's not a sexy industry, and they're not gonna like, you have the coolest new platform and you have this, because we don't. I mean, right? Like that's the honest feedback. But what they did say was the relationships and the trust that we had built with them, it allowed them to do more for their business. And so they went into these storytellings, and there was a pattern with them about growth. And so because we work with business owners and executives, they're looking for a growth partner. And they're looking for somebody that when a big bank comes in and they say, I want to do X, Y, and Z to get to this place with our business. Well, a big bank comes in and says, well, you don't fit this product and you don't fit this mold, so we can't do this. Or, oh, we could try to get there, but let's put you into this template. And what they really appreciated about our brand story and where we were at is the ability to find the yes and to come in as a growth partner, and not come in and with the mindset of, no, this isn't going to work. It was well, let's ask the question and see how we're going to get there. And so what I found out our sales teams are doing, because I don't know, I'm sitting in my 16th Street office looking out. I only get to hear what I hear. What I got to find out was our teams are actively out there trying to get an understanding of, okay, what are the different things that we can begin to pull to get our clients to where they want to be, and to be a growth partner with that. All of that to say, sales and marketing alignment is about working together collaboratively to get an understanding of how are we actually supporting the client. It isn't necessarily sales saying we're doing this, so marketing needs to do that. And it's not marketing saying, well, this is our brand story and this is how we're going to approach things, so you need to fit our mold. It's coming in together to get an understanding of like, what are they doing on their end to support our clients, and how can we fit it into our brand story to tell and to convey it. And once you're able to blend that together, the outcome is just so much healthier. And when we talk about headlines, it's not us being like, we're your local trusted bank. You need to bank with us. Now we're starting to have a conversation of, well, we're your growth partner, and we are somebody that's going to help you find the yes, and we're going to find a way to get your organization to that Series B, or you want to sell your organization one day. How can we get you there? It allowed us to kind of change the question in our head so that we start answering questions that our clientele and our prospects are actively looking for.
Yeah. A couple of things that I really love from what you said, and I think we can all take away is just like listening, like getting in as and having like the opportunity to listen to the customer, like hear from their voice, right? Because they're gonna tell you in their words what really hit for them, why they first engaged with you, why they stay with you, and explain in their words the benefit that you provide them. And then I love that, you had the chance to, have that open conversation with your sales team, right? The companies that I've worked the best, like had the most success at is when there's a good relationship between sales and marketing where everyone's on the same team. There's not just like blame being thrown over the fence at each other constantly, but everyone's working towards the same common objectives, on both sales and the marketing departments. And there's a sharing of information, tight feedback loops. So I love that you dove in, really tried to hear from the customer, hear from the sales team what exactly they were after, and use that to formulate your brand story. I think that's super impactful.
Unique about the banking side is like we don't have a VP of sales. Like that's not something that is like a common thing in the banking industry. And so a lot of them almost are like client relationship managers in the sense and the way that they approach things. And so I feel like the way we see it's a little bit different, but I'd love to hear from you. Like, I haven't had a chance to do a deep dive into your organizational structure, but like, how do you and maybe VP sales or sales and marketing kind of fall under you in terms of how does that conversation happen at a top level? And how are you guys kind of identifying the goals and identifying your guys' clients and their need base?
Yeah, being in software, some positions are a little bit different than like banking, but we have a product marketer and we have head of sales, head of marketing that are constantly having those kinds of conversations. So whenever we're putting out from the marketing side, we're putting out new campaigns and new messaging. We're getting feedback from the sales team. Our marketing team actually spends a lot of time every week just diving in and listening to call recordings from demos where prospects are telling the sales team like why they're interested in our product. And so there's we actually one of the things that we stress with our team is not just like reviewing AI summaries of calls. Because AI summaries will give you like some high points and some great word clouds, right? But you don't get to hear the customer's voice and how they're talking about things. And so our team spends a lot of time just like reviewing those calls, hearing from customers. Our product marketer is constantly out there doing market research, talking to people out in the market, not just those that are within our organization, our customers. We're getting good feedback from our sales team where they're validating some messaging that we put out. They'll tell us where things hit or don't hit when they get on the sales calls. Like, hey, like this line of messaging really kind of raised some more questions than it did actually benefit us. So can we take a look at that? So it's those constant feedback loops as we're doing our campaign planning, as we're getting some of those sales calls and reviewing those that I think helps create that really tight feedback loop. Um, you talked about that marketing and sales relationship, and I hear stories all the time about sales and marketing teams that are throwing blame or one blames the other. You'll see on LinkedIn other things like some funny like memes and stuff about that marketing sales relationship. Like where do you think that's rooted from? Like why do you think sales and marketing teams still have this like tension even here in 2026?
I think there's, I mean, so it depends on who's asking the question, right? Like if CFO is asking the question why sales and marketing isn't working, and they're starting to put the pressure on, I think everybody starts to blame like how much are we spending? and how much are we closing. So then you're putting the pressure on the marketing team in terms of, well, marketing spent $25,000 on this campaign and they haven't generated enough leads, therefore it's marketing's problem. And once marketing starts to feel that pressure go up, they go, well, hold on now. We generated these amount of leads, but sales isn't closing it. Look at the sales conversion rate. And so everybody starts playing this like kind of scapegoat system. And now, again, it depends on who's asking the question. And I think that that's where a lot of that pressure has been caused. But I don't necessarily find it to be personality clashes. I don't find it to be compensation, like structure problems. I think really what it has to be doing is we are trying to go through the full marketing funnel together. Sales is a part of the marketing funnel as much as they would like to be. They are actively out there prospecting. They're actively trying to close the clients. They're trying to do their thing. And when we start to figure out like, hey, somebody's having a problem, everybody starts pointing fingers. But when it's working smoothly and everybody's on the same team, sales and marketing are the biggest heroes to any organization. And so what I find it to be is a sense of, I don't want to say ownership, but it's almost a sense of the collaboration between the two. And I need to rephrase this one a little bit. So we might need to chop, just FYI, we might need to chop this one up a little bit. I had a place that was taking this and then I lost it. So let me backtrack a little bit.
Yeah, I think to hop in, I think where I've seen this a little bit is a misalignment in goals, right? Like oftentimes you'll see marketing just like celebrating hitting this like MQL goal, like, hey, we created all these MQLs and created all this pipeline, and then you have sales over here like, yeah, but it didn't turn into revenue, and this is what we're evaluating on, and you're over here like celebrating that you hit an MQL goal, but as a company we missed our sales target. And I think that's where I've seen your example of like finance coming. I think that's where I've seen some of the biggest friction is when we get into this blame game of like why we're not hitting certain targets and the targets aren't aligned, right? And so marketing isn't incentivized to create a high quality pipeline that turns into revenue. It's one of the reasons why one of the things we manage or we track is we track like stage 1 to stage 2 conversion. Meaning that they've had a conversation with sales. They both agree this is both the salesperson and the contact, the prospect agree like this is worth continuing the conversation. And so we track that, right? Like we track that stage to stage conversion to know that both parties deem this as a good opportunity for mutually beneficial opportunity for both. And so in that way, we tie like every marketer on my team has some tie to revenue to help support the organization's main goals. And in that way, when we win, we all win, and when we lose, we all lose. And so there's not this like finger pointing that tends to happen when companies are misaligned on their goals.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think what I've started to see on the sales and marketing front is the finger pointing only happens when there's bad quarters. I think when everybody's on the same page and everybody's starting to work in the same direction, rowing the boat in the right direction, whatever the saying might be, that you start to see everybody being like, man, we are such an amazing team and we're working great together. But when the pressure's on, that's when it's just about identifying. And listen, I'll call it out later. I'm a data-driven marketing hater. I lead with intuition. I lead with personality. And I think about you should be able to react to the moment, right? But I think it's about looking at the data steps in that point and finding out where in the funnel is things actually beginning to fall apart. Because when you're able to work together and identifying where the actual pain point is, it could absolutely be on the marketing team. And if it is, then the sales team has the right to be mad. If we're generating leads that are not actively looking to buy, or they are not qualified, or they are not going to be the right fit, sales is going to get frustrated because the setups that they are getting are setting them up to fail. However, marketing has the right to be angry at sales. And if, for example, we get the right lead in and they are qualified and they are ready to purchase, and the feedback is, well, the sales team really blew it and they didn't convert the lead, then marketing, who's getting judged with the entire organization on ROI and revenue growth, did the right thing and got the right people in the door, then it's on sales. And I think instead of being like more on a scapegoat system where it's about who blames who and why is the problem there, it's about working together to identify how can you guys actually optimize the funnel for your client base and for the client journey. And I think that's why sales and marketing teams hate each other. I think that not understanding a full client journey and understanding where the actual problem arises is where you start to see some of those tensions begin to foil.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. All right. So Zach, this is a section where we like to move into what we call Ask Reddit. So what we do, we pull questions, commonly asked questions off of Reddit, and aim to answer those here. So we'll just go through real quick here. The first question is number one. There's a massive thread on Reddit right now from a marketing student who feels like they're paying for a 4-year head start on an outdated theory. As somebody who's been vocal about your college path, what is the shadow curriculum, the skills that you actually use every day that you wish you had spent those 4 years learning instead?
But I wouldn't say instead in this case, in the way I'm going to harp on this, because I think college actually prepped for this. I do think college curriculum teaches in the past. I think that you're getting an understanding from marketing professors who said, well, when I did this 10, 15 years ago, this is what was successful. And I called out before, I think post-COVID era, things are so much different and it moves a lot quicker. I think buyer decisions move quicker. I think that the way that we produce content is a lot quicker. So originally I would say it's about content creation and it's about how can you come up with a way that your clients and prospects can engage on your website and do all those things. And I think after this boom in AI and this boom in the digital side of things, I don't necessarily find that to be true anymore. What I do find to be true is the relationship building. And I mean that from both internally and externally. I think that one, as we talked about sales and marketing alignment, your job as a marketer should be how can I build the best relationship I can with our product teams, with our client relationship teams, with our sales teams, whoever you want to call that's actually actively working on this funnel with you. And getting an understanding because they're going to give you the direct feedback and how you can begin to adjust. You can look at the data, you can look at all the steps, but it's not actually going to translate into real world execution and what's actually being said and what's actually happening. On an external side, I think who you know and who you can connect with leads to more opportunities and advancements in what you can do. So for example, I just got back from Arizona. I went down there for an event that we did and I tried to connect with some of our clientele. And I wanted to ask the question, what drove you to First Western Trust? And what do you like working with us? Who are you? What's your background? What's your passions? Like asking the question because I want to know who are we working with and how can we better fit for them? But then also finding partners while we're down there where I had a chance to meet with, her name is Sasha Clements. She's the director of the Scout Guide. It's a high-end print collateral piece. But she's built this network in Arizona after being the VP of marketing for Anheuser-Busch for 20 plus years. And I think being open and honest and just saying, I'm based in Denver. I have no idea what I'm doing down in Arizona. Can you tell me how can I better approach this market? And she was so open and so honest about where do we need to be appearing? Who's the networks and connections we need to be a part of? That network building has really allowed not only me to be a better marketer, but allowed me to start to connect into that for the organizations that I support. When I was on the marketing agency side, it was how can I connect to with so-and-so that can do a better job than I can at whatever we're doing? Or when I'm on the banking side of things, it's how can I tap into a new network? How can I get us into this position to be better? I don't think that is a skill that college necessarily teaches, but I do find it a skill that you can learn to build as you begin to participate. And that's in how you're comfortable in getting up there and speaking with your professors. It's what events outside of the actual classroom are you participating in. We talk about sports and its impact. How are you able to manage your teams? And how are you able to connect with the people around you who are actively pursuing the same goal? Because as much as it might feel like a competition with the other marketer, the other sales team, with HC, with the executives, whatever that might be, you're all on the same team. And finding better ways to work together and to support one another is really what leads to that marketing skill forward.
Yeah. One of the things what I loved about what you said was the skill of networking. For some that comes naturally, for some that's an acquired skill. By getting out and practicing that even when you're in school. But also just like the skill of being curious, being open-minded to different perspectives and taking what you can from your network, building up that network that you can rely on, but then just like being open and willing to hear these different perspectives and new ways of doing things, because while you may not agree with everything, there may be these little nuggets that you can latch onto that might open the door to something else. and with an understanding like not everything works for everyone, and not everything that works in banking isn't going to work in software and vice versa. But what can you learn from that, right? Like, um, a few years ago, learning from B2C marketing and what they're doing with influencers, just like studying that is what led to some things that we do here at Tilt, and like being curious about how different like things translate into what you do, and not just like immediately shutting it down. So for me, it's learning how to build up that network, building that circle that you can rely on, and two, like learning how to be curious and how to seek out different perspectives. I think is really key, and things that I would encourage anyone going through school right now to really work on.
There's a quote. My favorite show is Ted Lasso. You ever get a chance? I mean, that's when the soccer says can come in, but it's be curious, not judgmental. And when you apply it to marketing, it's looking at what marketing activations are working for other companies that you might not appreciate and you might not find to work very well, at least on first glance, but getting an understanding of how is it actually working for them. I am a hater of radio. I think it's dead. I don't believe in it. But I'm seeing organizations that are like, hey, this has been super effective for us. And just trying to get an understanding of like, okay, how is it working for you? How is it actually working for those goals? And like, what type of data and like, what type of information are you collecting to be able to execute on? So I couldn't agree more. I think it is about being curious. It's about trying to find more ways to engage with other people who are in the same industry and who have done things successfully previously so that we can actually be able to execute it internally as well.
Yeah, love it, love it. All right, next Reddit question here is marketing. Actually, let's go to this one. How do I market a boring company like insurance? Sorry, man, banking is in the question. I didn't put it in there. They did. How do I market a boring business like insurance, banking, or logistics? Every competitor says the same thing, and it just feels like a race to the bottom on price.
So again, I'm not a college top marketer, right? So forgive me for everybody that's out there if you have some complex thing that you believe in that is a reason for why we should approach it. But my mentor, Amy, she really taught me off the HubSpot model, right? And it's about that flywheel, that concept of building a flywheel instead of a marketing funnel, where you're not just trying to get to the conversion. It's about also what happens after the conversion. And so, yeah, baking can be boring. All right. It's not something that anybody wants to go, man, I cannot wait to switch over to a different bank. Like, I can't wait to set up a new bank account. Can't wait to go get a new loan. Like, that's not something that's super exciting to a lot of people. I also don't think it's something that people actively research to try to go make a sale on. I think oftentimes it relies on referrals and it relies on, as we talked about, trust-based businesses, right? And so with the marketing flywheel, the concept is how are we getting to a stage of promoters? And how are we turning clients to promoters to begin to accelerate our efforts and be able to get us into the right position? And so in a boring business like banking, as you say, not I say,
Reddit
I think
says. Reddit says.
Reddit says, sorry. I think what's super important is that we need to understand that most of the decisions being made isn't happening at the table. It is happening with colleagues and other professionals who are having conversations about what has worked for them. And so when we are able to turn our clients into promoters of our business, we don't have to spend the time coming up with these big, sexy, creative campaigns for an industry that's super boring. Instead, we're creating satisfied clients that are going out there and selling it for us. And I think that that is what we've seen a lot of success in here. We have a really strong COI network. For those that don't know that, it's centers of influence. So we have a really strong referral partner network of estate attorneys, again, not sexy industry, CPAs, attorneys, etc. But those that are like going through the life decisions in which you need a bank to support you and being able to say you should work with First Western Trust. And then as well, creating really satisfied clientele who are able to say, if they're a CFO, they're talking to their friend that's another CFO at another company and they go, I wasn't able to do that with JP Morgan or with PNC or whoever big bank is out there, but First Western Trust is able to do X, Y, and Z. And they're helping us make our marketing efforts go a little bit easier than what it could be if we didn't have those networks built out.
I love that. Love the concept of the flywheel. Zach, great to have you on the show today. I had a lot of fun chatting through sales, marketing, alignment, your path through college, and things like that. So really appreciate that. If the audience wants to connect with you, has follow-up questions, or just wants to connect, where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, what you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Love to connect with new people. Love to message. Love to hop on calls just to kind of see what's going on out there in the world. And then as well, I'll be heading over to the Financial Brand Forum in Vegas in a few weeks. So if anybody happens to also work in boring banking, I will be there and happy to connect on some of the financial marketing efforts that are going on. And then you guys can always reach out to me via email through MyFW. So excited to connect with anybody and would love to have a deeper conversation about what's going on in the marketing world.
Amazing. Thanks, Zach. Zach, thanks for joining the marketing thread, and for everybody listening, thanks for spending your time with us.